Welcome back to Star or Shovelware, my name's Luke, and in this kind of review we're checking out Timber Story, a game which comes to us from Morning Shift Studios, who you may recall brought us previous games such as Work Trip and Hike, and in much the vein of those reviews, this one is going to be more of a complete narrated walkthrough of the game, followed by my thoughts and opinions on it. The game is essentially a walking simulator featuring a lost lumberjack and a journey through a giant world of many unique biomes, apparently. So hopefully you enjoy our little adventure with this one, and if you do, make sure to check out my journeys through Hike and Work Trip. So to start with, this game's a bit of a big bastard and takes quite a while to download, so be sure to grab yourself a brew while you wait and perhaps a couple of bourbon biscuits, but stay away from those poxy custard creams, the granny's biscuits. When you finally do load into the game though, you're presented with a rather serene view of a flowing waterfall, which rather than being procedurally generated is a video clip with a bit of a noticeable join, but we do get a nice acoustic tune to get us into that happy headspace. After a reasonably long load screen though, we find ourselves in front of a smoking car and a downed tree, which our character apparently didn't see and smashed straight into, presumably after falling asleep at the wheel. But regardless of how this happened, our car is shagged, and with no way forward, I headed back down the road to seek help and walked straight into an invisible barrier. Discovering a side path between two rock surfaces, to one which clinged what appeared to be some tasty looking spare ribs, I encountered a sign pointing me this way and that, and decided that 2 arrows were better than 1. Following the path, I found some major deforestation going on, and ahead I spied a cosy looking log cabin. Upon approach, I met a woman who turned out to be a rude bitch, demanding to know who I was and what I was doing here, but that's as far as the conversation went with her, as I phased through her hollow torso. Tucked away behind the log cabin, however, I found a single grave, which a creeping suspicion told me marked the resting place of her late husband. Nearby I found a possible murder weapon, and drying on some racks around the corner I identified what was presumably his flayed flesh being tanned in the baking sun. I hastily made my retreat and followed the other path. This one led me to another log cabin where I found that alcoholic tramp from Drunken Fist, who had apparently given up the booze to become a lumberjack, and this dude said that he could help us clear the road if we could only find his friend who had been missing for a few days. He also informed me that his wife's friend nearby should know where he went, which only aroused further suspicion, but there was no way I was going back to speak to that horrible cow, and so I proceeded along the only other route available to me. Now after a short while I heard the sound of flowing water, and wouldn't you know it, a waterfall, and after a few leg stretches I sprightly hopped across the stones to the opposite bank. There I found that someone had once again gone apeshit with an axe and chopped down about 1 million trees, stacking the logs ever so neatly into piles, and propped up against a nearby wall I acquired a magical glowing ladder, which upon returning back across the stepping stones, I was able to use to create a way up and over a rock face, but instead decided to phase my way straight through it and into another loading zone. Now on the other side I found that night had suddenly fallen, and I was standing amidst a winter wonderland. According to my character, the weather could have been worse, despite it being a clear starry night with gentle snow falling, but I ignored his whining and proceeded onwards, noting that blazing torches appeared to be leading the way. Assuming that these must be some kind of marker, I decided to follow them, only to find myself completely lost after about a minute of wandering through multiple near identical paths between the cliff faces, and it took me a solid 5 minutes to find my way out of this shit show through an opening and into a flooded clearing, where daytime had once again come about. Here I took part in a bit more parkour, found a route blocked by a single tree branch, and backtracked to find a wooden hut tucked neatly away alongside the cliff, beside which I spotted a rather nice fiery looking hand axe, which I decided to have a way with and clear a route forward. Now upon entering this next area, I was once more faced with a maze of paths, and learning from my previous mistakes, I decided to keep to the right hand side at every opportunity. The developer, however, had apparently read my mind on this, and like a complete arsehole had placed a maze inside a maze, which I then had to work my way through to get to the final area of the game. Upon entering this next valley, I spotted a blazing fire off in the distance, and instantly knew that something wasn't right, and upon approaching the flames I heard cries for help up ahead, which could only be the missing Lumberjack. Flaming branches barred the way forward. I needed to find another way, this simply wouldn't do, and after working my way around, bravely navigating through some more burning timber, I found said Lumberjack trapped behind a blazing wall of fire. Peering through the flames, I noted that this particular Lumberjack looked very familiar, but this was no time for considering whether or not he was a reused game asset, and grabbing a nearby bucket, I sprinted back down the path, filled it with water from a nearby sea, and returned to douse the inferno, allowing the Lumberjack to escape unscathed. In the aftermath, I pondered how the fire might have started, whether our Lumberjack friend had been trapped behind it for several days, and whether or not this was some kind of retribution invoked by the forest, considering the bastard had chopped half of it down. But those thoughts passed, and I returned to my car to find the tree cleared, said my goodbyes to Alky John, and hopped behind the wheel of my smoking wreck, and onwards to the next leg of my journey. So that was it, that is the game in its entirety, and it took me about 20 minutes to complete from start to finish. So how does it compare to the previous two games? Well, visually I'd say it's an improvement. The environments felt a lot more fleshed out and detailed, the frame rate was more stable, and I preferred the textures in this one, which gave the low poly visuals a smoother, more polished look. When it comes to gameplay, once again there's barely any to speak of. This was however expected going by my previous experience, and apart from the shitty mazes, this one felt a little more structured than the other games, though I will say that I found less amusement in it, especially after witnessing the absolute chaos found in Work Trip. Overall though, if you've played and enjoyed the other games from this particular dev, you'll probably enjoy this one. It's a very short experience for the price, it's been put together using Unity assets and stock music, which I'm pretty sure I've also heard before, perhaps even in Work Trip, but they have been used to good effect. And though I always jokingly mock Morning Shift Studios titles, I'm always up for supporting a solo dev, so drop them a few quid if you want to support them too. And so that's about it for this kind of review of Timber Story on the Nintendo Switch. So have you played the previous games, and will you be playing this one? Let me know down in the comments section below. As always, hit that like button and subscribe to support both me and the channel. Thanks once again for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves, and game on.